times, but not always, an introduction to a temporal clause, right? The King James Version is, and it came to pass. In English, we can sometimes just leave it untranslated, in English as opposed to King James. So, verse 1, when the king dwelled, what's the temporal marker? How do I know that's a temporal clause? Because after Vaihi, I have ki used as a temporal conjunction, right? This is the temporal use of ki, when. How about in verse 4? I have another Vaihi, and it came to pass. What marks this as a temporal clause? The bait on Lila, right? In that night. And this is the temporal use of bait, following Vaihi. How do I know in the middle of verse 4, with that Vaihi, that it's not another temporal clause, and it came to pass? Because here it actually, in the context, has its own subject that is indicating that something was, right? And it's actually the main clause after the first temporal clause in verse 4. And it came to pass in that night, or just during that night, comma, Vaihi davar Yahweh, the word of Yahweh was to Nathan, saying. All right, we good on temporal clauses? The other very common way, and you should file this in your head if you don't already have it there, the other very common way to construct a temporal clause at the beginning of a sentence is to use Vaihi again, just like we see in these two instances, followed by a bait attached to the infinitive construct. Very, very common way to build a temporal clause. Instead of using a perfect verb like we have in verse 1, or instead of just using a prepositional phrase, in that night, it will say something like, and it came to pass, shiv t, when I dwelled, but it'll use a when I was dwelling, or when I dwelled in a tent, comma, and then you'll get the main clause. But it'll be Vaihi, plus the infinitive construct. We'll probably run across that at some point here. All right, we got up to verse 5. We're going to try to move even faster next time and have less introductory stuff and get through verse 11, right?